Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. Is it episode 7?
7.
Is that right?
That's lucky in some circles.
7. It's my favorite number, so we're just going to end it here. Every time we're shocked there's another one. I thought 6 would be it. It might be for folks listening. They may have given up at this point. We're down to just dwindling 1 or 2 folks. It's episode 7. We have our best guest ever. I mean, ever. I don't know if we're going to outdo it. I don't know if we'll outdo it. Diane Chadwick-Jones is here. DCJ.
No, I'm the only person who would actually agree to now do this. That's all it is, right?
It's a
that's
behind
what makes
the scenes operation. Look, we don't have to tell them the whole story. So Ron seems to have a handle on what we're talking about today. But I think before that, we still have to talk about what we've been listening to and who has new tattoos. That's sort of the normal thing. So Diane, any new tattoos?
Not recently.
That's fine. You want to come back on episode 8 or 9 or something?
Yeah.
We'll give you a little time to get one. Okay.
I'll get the logo on, right?
Yes.
So Ben's prepared to pay for anyone who wants to get the punk rock safety logo tattooed on them.
No, that's at CHOL only. It's a limited time offer. But
well,
if
by
you're
the time this comes
C-hole,
out, that'll be long past, won't it?
Exactly. You see how this is. I'll really talk it up while we're.
I love that you make offers that have already expired.
No, this will go the week before. This will come out the week before C-hole.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
no, come
we
on,
can
Ron.
do an early release.
Do some math, Ron. Do some math.
No, it's the week of, isn't it?
Nah.
Look, if we have to do an early release, it's fine. Not everybody is getting a PhD, Ron.
It's the week of.
Some people are paying attention to days.
Fantastic.
I'm prepared to, while we're at C-hole in Henderson, Nevada, Vegas adjacent, if you want to get the punk rock safety logo tattooed, I'm in. Either the logo or there's another, if you look online on the store, there's another option, punk rock safety tattoo sticker. You got to get that tattooed for real. I'll pay for it. That's the deal.
Sexy as hell.
So sexy. Diane, what have you been listening to? Anything good?
Well, I was actually thinking about the Sex Pistols actually, because I was just kind of getting into the mood for this podcast, and I just really kind of fired me up. Actually, it reminded me when I was a teenager, like when it was really happening, it was like I lived through that, and it was so so shocking. Like everything was all men in suits and stuff, and all of a sudden these punk bands kind of burst on the scene, and incredibly inspiring at the time, I have to say. Very scary too, but that's okay.
So a little bit like Ron. Inspiring but scary.
I got a random text actually from someone. I've been getting random texts. I don't know what Ben and Ron your IMs have been like, but someone's
like, hey, trying to contact Julie, some lady named Julie. But then wants to be a friend of mine all of a sudden.
Yeah,
sure.
I just got to send him some Amazon gift cards. It's fine.
That's all right. But it suggested that we need to do a punk 1, punk 2 type of episode, and just that you'd mentioned the Pistols, Diane. Kind of said we should do a punk 1, Pistols, Damned, kind of early days, and then a punk 2, like a Green Day, Blink, kind of back end, and that could be a fun episode.
Yeah, and then we'll do all the waves of ska and why they're all bad. It's our last few listeners are gone now. Ron, what are you listening to?
I hearkened back to my roots in the San Francisco Bay Area and listening to some Rancid recently. I didn't know that they were, they formed in Berkeley, but they're from Campbell, which is a suburb of San Jose, and that's I lived there for a while, so about that same time, which is kind of interesting. I didn't know that.
So if you're listening, that's Ron is cool by proximity.
I know, like if I'm near someone that's cool,
you draw a radius.
I sort of drain their coolness.
Tim has like a really cool full head tattoo that I'm thinking, I mean, as close as you grew up to them, I think it looked good for you too.
Yeah, maybe that's the post PhD.
Yeah, maybe wait. Any new tattoos? Yeah,
I can't remember when
you haven't showed her off the.
Yeah, I got this one here. It's Sailor Jerry lady.
Super cool.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see probably, but
no, we can see it almost too well.
Yeah. Put the shirt down.
Dave, what have you been doing?
I've been on the road a little bit, but music wise, hence the background, being back to the early Blink stuff. And the video clips are really cool. I think the music video clips in the 90s were really, really cool. Yeah, and I was sort of thinking you could do a lot that you couldn't get away with now in our woke world of 2024. I think yeah, it was good.
Cool.
So you want to do a music video is what you're saying?
I think we should. I mean, we've got intro music, but I think an intro music video would be a good thing for us to do.
Oh, all right. Diane's in.
I'm in.
Not on purpose.
Think about it
here, so that's how it goes. Any new tattoos, Dave?
No, not well. I'm saving it for Vegas.
Okay, excellent. I've got Have Heart behind me.
I know someone has a new tattoo.
I do. That's really, I was just waiting for it to get to me.
I know. You're like, I want to talk about tattoos. You guys don't want to talk about tattoos?
Well, we were talking about them every other episode, at least in part. I just thought it's a good intro.
I like it.
I mean, just pretend you want to see it. Do you want to see it? Let's see.
I do want to see it. It's your stabby octopus.
There it goes.
That's rad.
It's like an octo run.
Yeah. And you got coloring on that other one, didn't you?
On this one.
Yeah. That's nice.
This
very nice.
As run. Yeah. Getting there. Man, Diane, what are we talking about? Run. It felt Run like you had some ideas, but
well, no, this came from Diane. What?
Yeah, no, you asked me what I wanted to talk about.
True.
And,
it was a good idea.
Yeah, it was about why are we so scared to move away from the traditional ways, and how can kind of we support each other to move away from the traditional ways? So it was along that lines. I mean, there was also a bit about like, why is it that we as safety professionals, we're stuck into doing so many things that don't actually help safety, and that we know that. I mean, that was another idea. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough old world out there, isn't it? Where you're in an organization, and there are the constraints of the organization, and you're sitting there going, I know this is wrong. I know that what we're doing isn't making the situation any better. How do I break out of that?
Yeah. Dave,
right,
I feel like
just
you
sit tight for all the answers on that.
Yeah. Dave, I feel like you wrote some stuff about some of those topics. What say you?
Oh, look, I shared Diane's kind of opening comments, when we did some of the safety clutter work and the safety work versus the safety of work stuff in 2018. We thought it was going to give companies so much permission to have these conversations about the things that were being done that either they weren't confident were adding value, or pretty much everyone agreed, but no one would actually say it out loud, that these things were a waste of time. And the speed has been kind of glacial for the last 5 or 6 years. And it surprises me that, the number of open conversations I'll have with health and safety professionals about all the stuff in their business in the name of safety that they don't believe in and they don't think's working, and then don't seem to be able to. I'm not going to say don't want to. I'm just going to say don't seem to be able to do much about that, for reasons I guess we'll talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with safety staff even in my current work, not necessarily in my organization, but dealing with the contractor safety folks and others, that where we'll all agree that something is stupid or doesn't add value. And then it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do now? I don't know. It's like they just, and nothing changes. Like, it's just everyone agrees it's bad, but we don't take that next step. I'm just, why is that? Why do we think that is?
I think it's scary for a lot of folks, whether that fear is justified. It's scary to try something that looks like you didn't know how to do your job before.
Hmm.
And I think that's, and again, it's just my experience, but we spend a lot of time sort of embedded in organizations and supporting safety professionals and executive teams, and all the way up to executives. I think it's really a little bit scary to say, man, I'm just going to go out there and try this thing that I don't have really clear evidence. There may be evidence in articles and studies and even anecdotal stuff, but you haven't done it and you don't know how it's going to look, and you're going to stand in front of the board and you don't want to look like a complete asshole. And that's sketchy.
Yeah.
I think we need somebody to kind of have our back on it.
Yeah.
That's what I keep on noticing, is that, we kind of know that we need to change. We know that it's a kind of a big step. But I think having a sponsor does make a big difference. Somebody who's saying, we've got a plateau, or we've got incidents coming out of nowhere, or we've got repeat incidents. And then, fortunately, there is evidence out there that we can bring in, and there is help out there that, or even I see companies doing it for themselves without even anybody from outside helping them. But I think that having the sponsor who's going to have your back, I think that's a big deal. But I don't know what you think about that.
There's a weird, it's like a magnet sometimes when these things line up anyway, and you go, oh, well, maybe it does work. So I was in a meeting, two weeks ago, company-wide meeting, and everybody, COO down, so the CEO wasn't in there, but they're having this discussion about injury rate, TRIR, everybody's favorite. Should have called Hallowell. And they're talking about TRIR, and they weren't happy with it last year. And this year, at the same time, we're 1/20th of what it was, which should sort of make things perk up, right? 1/20th, really. So whatever, it's 1/20th. I think there's maybe a math error. I'm not going to raise my hand. And the guy goes, so what we're doing is working. Yes. We made that new JSA form, and look what happened.
Nailed it.
This is no shit what happened in a meeting. And I'm over here turning my camera off because I'm look like a cat with a hairball, fucking dying. Like, number one, it's a 20th. Give me a fucking break, right? Since the dawn of time, it's never been that low, and it just dropped this year. And I think it's really tough in the face of those things that just sometimes align, and you just need that win in front of the executive team. You're like, man, we nailed it. I don't know what's going to happen next month. We're all fucked again. But I think it's tough to budge. Yeah. It's tough to budge that stuff if it's what everybody knows and has seen. I don't think that's limited to safety. I think that's, as quality practices have changed, as finance practices, or even the approach to business, right? I mean, and Ron, since you have a real job, this is probably, you see this a little closer, but the approach to business that your company takes is probably a little different than others in the industry, and that you have to leap at some point, and that's you don't know that you're going to be successful. So I don't know. I think it's that uncertainty combined with a employment marketplace where uncertainty may mean that you just get a lot of time to do hobbies. I don't know.
Did you say hobbies or hoppies?
Hobbies. You get a lot of time to do hobbies. Hoppy.
Or do
Yeah.
poppies.
If
it's
you're
fine.
unemployed, what I'm getting at, if you've been promoted to customer, you have a lot
You're
of
on
time.
garden leave. Were you gonna say something, Dave? Go ahead.
There you go. I'll go after.
Yeah. So what pops in my head is I think it's from Carl. Oh crap! Someone just told me how to say his last name correctly, and I can't remember. It's like Veek or something like that. But we always call him Carl Weick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Carl
let's just
Weick.
agree.
Yeah.
I think
No, Carl Weick.
I think his name's like someone told me that day it's supposed to be Veek, which
yeah, the way I've heard it pronounced is like a DJ scratching a record, so it's like Carl Wiki. Yeah, I think is how you pronounce it properly
in in the native tongue. No, about sense making is that sense making is more about plausibility than accuracy. And I think that really applies here because I think a lot of what we're talking about, and this goes back to what you're saying, Diane, about a sponsor, what having that sponsor sort of creates a social proof. I know I'm getting choked up.
Love the clip.
If only I could have a sponsor.
I remember one time Carl Wittgenstein vouched for me. No, but
all making sense.
But no, it's like it's scary as hell to be out there and having that extra person to help us do that actually creates more plausibility, because one of the ways that people make sense of the world is, okay, if it's just one random guy doing it, like he could be a glue sniffer, like we don't know. But like if it's two, especially if it's two people who I've never seen either of them sniffing glue, then then we start to, okay, maybe there's something here,
It's a new t-shirt on the merch.
Glue sniffer.
Glue sniffer.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think there's something there. I've talked about this a lot with Drew, actually, about how a lot of what we do in safety is about anxiety management. And I think that relates
Diane,
a lot
you
to
were
what we're talking
at a conference very recently where Drew spoke about anxiety management.
It was the big hit of the whole conference.
Well,
it was
Drew,
like people were mobbing Drew. But so basically what he said was, all the things that we do in safety is about anxiety management, and that it's like to give the illusion of control, like audits, like risk assessments, incident investigations, all of these things. And it's not actually about learning. It's not actually about improvement. In fact, it's just about making us feel better. But of course, the only thing that really improves safety is structural change to the work. Okay, and we all know that. I mean, and people just like were throwing their arms up in the air and shouting hallelujah and having their pictures taken with him. And I'm not joking, he was totally mobbed. And then they're doing LinkedIn posts about it. And I'm thinking, this is brilliant. I mean, it's kind of calling out, what all of us have, so us and many other people have been thinking for 20 years, and that it's all about the kind of proceduralization and paperworkness of it all. And now Drew has kind of managed to kind of get in there with the wider safety community which go to this particular conference, and he's really just kind of hit a sweet spot there. It's amazing. Delighted.
I think sorry, go Ron.
No, please.
I was just going to say, I think one of the challenges for doing something new is where is the motivation going to come from? And so the comment earlier, which is our incident rates are really, really low. So why would we want to do anything differently? Let's just keep, or our incident rates are really, really high. There's a lot of pressure on us. Now's not the time to do something differently. Now's the time to kind of double down with So you can criticize us for our incident rates, but you can't criticize our approach to safety. We're doing this full noise. And so it's hard to know where that motivation come from. So I agree, a small group and sponsorship can really help. The biggest progress that I think I made when I had a real job in this space was during a major, and Diane would know from her background, during 2015, 2016, oil price crisis, right? When a company is ready to find new ways of doing business because oil's gone from $120 a barrel to $30 a barrel. And so, we did, in 18 months, we did, a hugely significant decluttering project, changed all the practices, half the size of the safety team, transferred a lot of ownership and accountability into leaders, set up coaching, like heaps and heaps of stuff, which probably would have taken 5+ years without that motivation from the organization or a willingness to do different things. So I think that's a question that needs to be tackled. Like, how are you going to get an organization to want to do something different? And I think that's really, really, really hard.
Is that Todd Conklin in the bottom corner?
Yeah, so Diane can just pat Todd just anytime.
Just tap a little red, yellow hat. It's fine.
In front of the taco truck, by the way.
The man with the yellow hat.
100% where the taco truck was.
That is
I think that Dave, it's a really good point. And the question that you said was, how do you get an organization to want to change? And I think it's really tough to just say organizationally, you're talking to a board or an executive team or even a division team. And you're saying, okay, we're going to rethink how we do safety. And safety is still an abstract in a lot of ways for folks. We're fighting it. We're getting there. Fine. But your example of saying, well, look, there are other economic factors. Let's whittle away at some of those things too, right? Can we improve engagement? Can we get this organization to the right size? Can we make sure that training works a little bit better? And we're not focused on training on this bullshit clutter stuff. We're training the things that matter. And so we're keeping people around longer because we're not driving them fucking crazy. And all those things, if you say, look, turnover goes down, engagement goes up, our training effectiveness is better. We're a little more efficient in these two lines of work. So for every penny, we keep a little bit more. Well, now I'm not just saying, hey, safety's cool, man. Drew said so. Let's hang out. And between the four of us, I think we're all getting our picture taken with Drew, but the executive team is not. So we've got to make that case. I don't know. I think.
Yeah. And I think the other thing I say is that the question is, have you even had the conversation with your organization? Sometimes I go around and, this seems to be a little bit of finger pointing. The safety team points the finger at management not wanting to do something differently. And then when I ask safety teams a lot, like, so if you just sat down and had a really sensible conversation with your leadership team about, I think there's ways that we can do this better. We need to get closer to the work. We need to get closer to our people. We need to involve them in the shape of work. We need to create more open communication in the organization. We need to find ways to better integrate safety into the work, and like a sensible, logical, practical conversation about what can be achieved differently. And a lot of safety teams just assume that management don't want to do anything differently, and management is sitting there just assuming that their safety department's useless. And neither the two shall talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the other things too is, you have to start to have that conversation, and then it's similar to the conversation about blame and so many other things that we would point to that we would say are dysfunctional in an organization. There is nothing that is purely dysfunctional. Everything serves a purpose. It's designed to achieve some goal, right? And so if Drew is right, and a lot of this is for anxiety management, part of your conversation with them has to be helping them identify and deal with those things that they are afraid of, right? So, and I think fundamentally it's like something I think Eric Hallnagel says. It's about, you need to be safe and you need to appear to be safe, right? Like,
and feel safe.
Feel safe.
Yeah, and feel safe at the same time. Like, these things you have to help manage both, and not confuse the two also, right? And so if you're not supporting management and feeling that while also trying to achieve the other goal, then you're gonna not be successful, or at least as successful, I would say.
Yeah, I think what's scaring leaders at the moment is that they're realizing that their metrics are not showing them the reality of what's going on. So they're
Unless
getting
it's 1/20th.
Oh yeah, unless it's
Last
1/20th.
year.
Unless it's gone down by
Clearly good.
Ben,
And
you're at
so,
a
but
safety
that-
stand down. Just stop going to safety stand downs.
but
Sorry,
that's
Diane.
kind of no, it's
If you
reaching.
only do safety stand downs, it will definitely be 1/20th.
Oh yeah, because you're not doing any work, right? Yeah, that is the best way to get safety. So during COVID, when safety performance massively improved, well, that's because there was so much less work. Yeah, so that's what's really scaring people, is they're realizing that their metrics are not telling them anything, and they're doubling down. They're doubling down on the things that are kind of artifacts that make no difference to the safety of work in any way, like audits, for example, doubling down on that, or risk assessments. And then of course, and here's where it gets interesting, and they just keep on doubling down and things keep on getting worse. And I think that's where we think, well, yes, there are these things that we can do to help with allaying the anxiety, by actually looking at the reality work and making structural changes and being able to tell stories about that. And I think that does help.
Yeah. Well, it gives them some sense of, you're sort of like removing the obscurity, the black hole, if you will, on what's really going on, and creating a connection. The problem seems much more tangible, I think, when we do this work. And that, I'm very hesitant to move into the world of mental illness, mental health, because I'm definitely not a psychologist, but what little I know.
It's all right. I mean, let's wing it.
Yeah. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk leeches.
I don't think it's a problem.
Okay,
You're not a doctor. You're not a doctor yet, Ron.
Get that cocaine water back out.
Once I get my PhD,
Cocaine water for everyone.
Free to give medical advice. Anytime.
Ron will take a look at that for you. Anything.
No experience.
Yeah, I'd cut it off if it were me.
Ron, you just can't wait to get onto a plane and somebody say, "This is an emergency. Is there anyone a doctor?" And you go,
I will solve the shit out of that with some social science.
I think they might have had a few academics do that, because every plane I've been on, they always seem to say, "Is there a medical doctor on the plane?"
Is this a joint activity problem in complex systems? No. Okay, never mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, carry on.
Everything's a joint activity problem in complex systems, Ron.
That's what I'm saying, Dave.
I'm telling you.
They don't listen to me.
I've given you so much advice on how to deal with writing that thesis.
Including but not limited to.
I told that to Mike
GPT.
and I can't remember what he said, but it was very sternly worded.
Really? No sense of humor. No sense of humor. We need to get him on the podcast.
We should absolutely get him on the podcast. I think he was in a ska band. So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Yeah, it's disqualifying.
Yeah.
I mean, Rancid's got a,
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Punk, right?
You're making me laugh so much. I'm crying.
We usually
cry on the podcast.
Diane. You can just say that you're crying.
Sorry, carry on, Ron.
It's usually Ron that's crying, but he's trying to finish a PhD. So.
No, I was crying earlier today.
All right, Ron, medical advice. Back on track.
Yeah, but anyways, let's go back to giving.
So there was this appendix.
Unlicensed medical advice.
You live in a pretty litigious part of the world in California as well, so you might want to.
Yeah. So, anyways, my advice is Dr. David Proven is no. So, but like, one of the things that helps with anxiety is grounding. Like you ground yourself in the situation, in the environment. Like, you know, yeah. People who are just listening can't
Are you
see
are you
the
playing
Dave.
bongos?
amazingness that is happening right
It's
now
a
with
drum
the
circle,
hands.
and Dave will not participate.
I know. He's
Bongo,
just
bongo,
Clearly.
bongo.
that's exactly what a drum circle sounds like. That's amazing. Oh. But you know what I mean? Like I think so. I think there is something there about, you know, creating that channel about how things are going at the front line up to the leadership, helping them to start to see what's really going on, the messy details, which I think paradoxically can make you feel simultaneously like, oh my God, things are way more chaotic than I thought they were. But now it's actually something I can do something about, you know, like, and I feel like there might be something there that would support
And I think
making change.
I think the people feeling the anxiety are trying to shoulder so much of the responsibility to solve all the problems of the world. And what I see is organizations doing things differently, but in the same old way. Right. So you know, there's some work in institutional studies on, you know, corruption of role and task, and no matter what leaders intend to happen, when you tell someone to do something, it's a compliance task, right? It's you just to communicate that intent in those sorts of hierarchical relationships is next to impossible. So it doesn't matter if we're doing something differently. If we're still doing it by telling people what to do, we're unlikely to get different outcomes because it's a compliance activity, right? I have to do 3 learning teams this month, so I'll do 3 learning teams, and I've done those, and then, you know, the risk is that people actually get the opportunity to do something differently, and nothing changes, and then the business straight away can go, oh well, that didn't work. Let's move on. And we've seen some organizations with some fairly spectacular regressions back from, you know, different approaches to safety because the business hasn't been able to see the value in what's being done, or something else has come along and really scared them, that sort of reverted them back into traditional approaches. So I think that anxiety piece is really important for us to, you know, talk openly about inside our organization. I think.
Yeah. When I think in general, like there's a couple things that I think are really important in this that I wanna underline is, number one, even though it is very easy to point at the individuals involved, the individual, whether it's safety professionals or leaders, and be like, man, they're so just stuck in the past and everything. And maybe in some sense they are, but like the problem we're describing is not a function of dumb people, right? Like,
Yeah, most problems are, despite the things we say, not just us, but most problems are not a function of just like dumb people, right?
exactly,
And I
right?
always
Like,
tell people, look, if everyone's an idiot in your organization, you have a serious human resources problem. Like, you've identified and then hired all the stupid people. That's
yeah,
you
like
should probably hire an HR consultant.
like that's
Stop
not
thinking
even
about
randomness
safety.
at that point. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's bananas.
that's
Show me the
borderline
ways, right?
sabotage.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't make any sense. So the assumption that maybe they're not all stupid
Yeah,
is, it maybe sounds better because it makes you sound like less of an idiot, right?
yeah,
If you're so good at hiring stupid people, sort that out first, or entertain the possibility that it's not a stupid person problem,
yeah,
that you've got a 50-year-old company that's done a whole lot of successful things, and trying to figure out which things to throw away is tough, you know,
mm,
and then get told you're stuck in the past, and you go, well, geez, dude, we've been around a while. We're profitable. All these people have jobs. What do you want me to quit doing?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think it's the conditioning. I mean, what I see in companies is the level of conditioning, just like the basics of like punishment and blame, are so strong that people have been promoted on the basis of being harsh, and this illusion of control and all this auditing and risk assessment and just culture with, you know, all those words like negligent and reckless and all that kind of stuff, and it's just so difficult to let go, because that's what they were rewarded for, and that's what our leaders got their their promotions based on. And then we come along and go, well, hey, I mean, how's this working out for you? Well, not so well, really. I mean, things seem to have stagnated somewhat. And we like to show you the different ways of how to do this, and it's working out for other companies. I mean, obviously, it has to be adapted to your company. And I mean, that's a big jump. That's a pretty big jump. But I think all four of us are seeing companies doing that, and that it is working out for them. So all hope is not lost.
No, I think
you made the case for behaviorism in there too, with the punishment and reward. It sure felt like
it was a strong. I was going to say we call that cocaine water. That's what we call that.
Delicious,
delicious.
I'm
ready to hit some buttons.
I think you made a really great point there. Probably the best point yet, Diane. Which isn't that hard, like in the company that you're in. But the point about conditioning, and just how much how much unlearning needs to go on. Edgar Schein talked about, one of the biggest challenges is not learning something new; it's unlearning something, that you already believe in or you already think works. And you sort of, when you said you asked some leaders how that's working out for you, and they said, "Oh, not that well." I think most leaders, when you ask how that's working out for you or how has that worked out for you in your career, most will have this sort of positive affirmation and like, oh, our incident rates went up, but it's only because we got a better reporting culture, and our incident rates went up, but our severity rates were down. And yes, we had this one isolated major incident, but that was because of the contractor, or that was because of our, a dumb worker who did something they shouldn't have. Like, we had a great system. They just didn't follow it. And I think leaders, I think particularly leaders who are very goal-driven and motivated people and value success, I think they find success everywhere, even when it may not sort of be there. So, I think that unlearning piece. I was in a meeting the other day, and without giving too much away, because I can't really get sacked, but I can end up with no work. This new CEO into a business, just said to me first time we've met, the biggest problem in this organization is people don't believe that all incidents are preventable, and asked me directly, do you believe that every paper cut can be prevented? But this, I won't mention the industry, and I won't mention.
It's a good opening meeting.
But this poor CEO had 30 years of conditioning in the industry that they are in. That it's not. They're not, leaders aren't bad people either. They're all products of their experience and their successes and what's worked. And this person's appointed by a board who is equally as stale in their views of safety. And so, I think that
I don't know if it's even
unlearning.
I don't know if it's even stale though, Dave. I think it's just, I mean, there's a lot of things in the world that if you ask me to do, it's like asking my dog to do, right? You want me to go, Ron can be a psychologist, not me. You want me to go do a medical procedure. It is not going to happen. I haven't had the training. So you can't say I have stale ideas. Like, I think drilling in people's heads is still good. It's just, I've not been presented maybe with the ideas. And, similar meeting the other day I was having with somebody, and it was this whole target zero, all things are preventable. And I said, well, I think we should talk about that. And at some point it just came up and said, well, how many fucking things should we have? So we don't have
7.
to ever be okay
7.
with. Yeah. 7 is what's always a good starting point.
7 plus or minus 2.
So I don't know. I tend to be, maybe I give folks a little bit more room as leaders for just not, like, I don't expect them to be able to do deep financial modeling. They hire people for that. I don't expect them to be experts in safety, but then we turn around and expect them to be sort of the oracle on the mount and talk about all these things safety related, when we've never educated them, trained them, and that's pretty hard to do. Well, it's hard to find the time to do, I should say.
There's a story of I heard Daniel Kahneman say about Kurt
Let me get a
Lewin.
little cocaine water for this.
Yeah, you need it. You're gonna need it. Buckle the fuck up.
It's a wild ride here.
But they were, he was talking about how one of the insights Kurt Lewin had that was really profound is that we often, when we see behavior that we don't want, we ask, why aren't people doing what we want them to do? And rather, he said the profound insight from Kurt Lewin was you flip it and you say, why, what's getting in the way? What's stopping them from doing that? What are the barriers? What are the constraints? Like, why wouldn't they be doing that already? The thing I want them to do, and I think what we're talking about is sort of in line with that, where rather than say that these, the problem is localized in the individuals, what we're describing is a problem that's more structural, more connected, more woven into the fabric of the organization, into the institutions, into the incentive structures, and it's serving a purpose, and it's propping, these belief systems up. And I think it's worth rather than say, man, it's just so obvious to us how stupid these things are. And it is but there's a logic that's underlying it. Right. And I think we have to go at that and support that in some sense, with a more productive way of thinking, a more productive approach. Like Diane, something you've said a lot that in your previous work with BP that has always stuck with me is like, one of your influence techniques was not to just try to convince people directly, but to put it out to the world so it would circle like a boomerang and circle back and influence them, because to me, it's going at the overall logic that your leadership is using. And I think a lot of people's leadership is using about, hey, what are other people benchmarking? Like that's a big thing. Like, I think that, that kind of stuff makes sense. In some ways that's subversive because it's not like I'm going to go and directly talk to them and everything, and try to change their mind with statistics or something like that.
Well, yeah, because then we're making them wrong. And that's just, if we complain about people blaming and we go and blame the leaders ourselves, well, we're no better, are we? And so it's, yeah. You realize that after a while. It's, I mean, for me, when I see any organization, I always worry about destabilizing it, because the things that are in place at the moment, as you said, Ron, that actually it is about how to keep the whole environment stable. And so you have to think, well, what are those things that make it so compelling that the organization, I mean, the many people who are in the organization would want to look at a different way. And I think talking about innovation tends to help, because every organization realizes modernize or die, right? Mm-hmm. So a way of influencing is going, well, how are other organizations modernizing? Is the question that we ask, and we are seeing a bunch of organizations modernize in this way. And we got aviation from the 1940s and nuclear from the 1980s made these huge structural changes to the way that the work was set up, and so we can point to those, but that it's also happening in other industries now. But I agree with you. I mean, I don't think we should be stealthy, because that's deceitful. Mm-hmm. But if it's about the questions that we ask, really, it's more about that, well, what are other organizations doing? How can we modernize? It's those kind of, it's so that they answer the questions that are the executives and other leaders in the organization have, okay, well, what can we do to be better?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like thinking about it systemically, right? Yeah. So it's not just like, just coming at it from the back door. You're looking, okay, what are all these different leverage points and how can I attack all of them in various ways? I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there. Like if you speak to an executive team and say, "Do you want to do safety differently?" That would be really anxiety invoking. Like if you said,
really?
do you want to be a more innovative organization? They'll say, yeah, absolutely we do. Okay. So I think like language and logics and understanding kind of like what's shaping decisions in the system is really important. And I think sometimes in safety we can race off and we go, oh, there's 5 principles of human and organizational performance. We're going to implement learning teams, and we've got to understand the gap between work as imagined and work as done to set workers up for success. And we can't blame and so just they're going, like,
I'm actually Dave's pitch.
I'm going to nod. I'm going to nod and I'm going to smile because I don't want to be seen not to care about safety. But what the hell is going on?
I've done that. And it works occasionally, but usually not. Yeah. Usually not. It works occasionally when somebody's in a hole, but generally speaking, not sea hole, but in a hole.
Oh man.
In a hole, but otherwise they just look at you as if you're a crazy and go, you're not listening to me. It's all about you. What about me? What the needs of me and my organization is. Don't come at me like a consultant with all this kind of cookie cutter stuff.
I've got a canned solution that'll work for you and everyone else. Ron, you said leverage points, and I got to thinking too about if you're thinking about change in organizations or complex systems, maybe not both at the same time, but Donna Meadows, you've probably
Vanilla Meadows,
yeah, the sort of, I think her friends called her Donna. So since
sorry,
I wasn't with everyone.
I wasn't in the friend group.
Yeah,
introduce me to your friends.
Carl Veek. Yeah. She has is this really nice sort of diagram of well, I think it's 12 sort of leverage points, and none of those is beat someone over the head with the principles of the idea.
Are you sure? Where's that? I have that book.
Hold on. I thought it was usually the one that's.
I thought that was 7.
Googling things. It's actually the most effective. I'm going to find it.
If they don't seem to be listening, talk louder.
That's right.
Excellent.
Blame fixes nothing.
It doesn't. Oh man, the thing.
But it's satisfying sometimes.
I think,
but it feels really good.
It does reduce anxiety sometimes in a very local way for us. Right?
Yeah.
Just throw a little certainty at somebody and then run away before they can say anything.
Okay, shall I tell you the one of the worst things I ever did was I was working at a site. And it was all going really well, and then it was in Algeria, and we finished and we were having this fun dinner and we were telling jokes, and then I told a joke that ruined everything, and you've all heard it, which is, and how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb?
Yeah.
Oh, don't know. One, but the light bulb must want to change, and they just looked at me and they went bright red and really angry as if I'd been manipulating them. And I was thinking, oh shit, that was not my intent. But I just realized that you do have to be kind of really honest, and you shouldn't bring the cookie cutter to people, and you should find out what it is that their anxiety is. But it's it's a tough one.
And I'd suggest definitely serving more cocaine water at your dinners, Diane.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Well, it was a dry site. It was in the middle of nowhere in Algeria, and there was no alcohol. There was nothing.
There it is.
The rats are never going to push the right button without cocaine.
Without the reward. So. One of the things that I going back to the anxiety piece, one of the things that I've always been really curious about is all of the things that we do for safety inside organizations and most of the documentation around it. And then when we think about how we navigate safety and risk in normal life, this is probably a question for you all. Like, how many of you have done anything like a planned inspection of your house every 7 days, or a checklist for your car when you drive to the shops, or how many procedures? Do you have a set of life-saving rules for the kids to follow? Do they have to do risk assessments before they ride their toboggans down the stairs?
Here's our method statement right here. This is our procedures. I'm just kidding. I was just a bunch
Ali,
of random
is
shit
that
out
is so they're your procedures, Ron? That's so you stay married. The roommate agreement. Yeah, but I just find it interesting that we put it so
Dave doesn't
much
want the answer to this question.
so much confidence in a lot of these things that we do in our organization for safety, but they don't really exist in the rest of our lives. So
and
do
isn't
you
that
have an
weird?
answer, Ben?
Because a lot of safety folks do that. You know, safe at work, safe at home. You know, these sort of all-encompassing things, right? And you hear this at companies, and they're talking about, you know, we want you to go home and take this home with you too. And no, well, you fucking don't, right? Like you don't. I know it sounds good. It makes it feel like we care, which is
this person
anxiety reducing.
This person does not care about safety because I drove past and they were mowing their lawn and they weren't wearing boots and a hard hat.
Yeah, exactly.
And Ben, so Diane, you'll get a checklist kick out of this because Ben took me fly fishing, right?
Yeah.
And so and I don't know, Ron. I don't know if you fly fish, but I didn't get a safety briefing. I didn't get any procedures. I didn't get any rules.
Oh
you
shit!
know, like
nothing.
I'm gonna have to report you.
That's horrible leadership.
But we didn't die. So I'm just gonna say, by virtue of outcomes, let's keep doing what we were doing.
We almost died in that
TRIR for our podcast. I feel like it's pretty low.
I think you're forgetting what happened in that gin distillery, Ben. We did almost die.
You did. And honestly, the very first thing we did, and by we I mean me, was fall in the fucking river. Dave, I don't know if you remember that. I stood on the bank. My fat ass apparently destroyed the river that had taken eons to become what it was. And I fell in.
That's the power you have, though. I mean, that's got to feel pretty good. Like eons of like time nature. And the force of nature is just no match for you. Just
redirected the Grand Canyon. You're welcome.
Oh, and what did you learn?
Oh, fuck all. There's a lot of swearing. A lot of swearing. Yeah. No, you know what I did learn, Diane? There is something I learned. There's this thing called a wading belt, which is meant to
yes.
It's meant to keep all the water from going in. And I had taken mine off and used it on another set of waders or something like that. So I got all the water.
So a pre-use checklist would have found that.
The water.
Yeah.
The water.
Water?
The water.
This is fantastic.
Water.
I was just trying to get Dave to do his American water. Water.
I think you're supposed to keep the water outside the waders, but I have not done fly fishing, so
that's correct. I do have a checklist on my phone, Dave. You'll be pleased to know when we have.
Oh, but you didn't do it. So it's an intentional violation.
Not for fly fishing.
I've got to get my algorithm out and figure out.
For the camper.
Where does this
after I drove?
Yeah, negligent.
After I drove a camper away.
Did you intend for the outcomes to occur?
Yes. It was an unsafe act.
So the Just Culture algorithm says that I'm fine. Everything's good. You know, it's a bunch of idiots everybody hired.
So one of the things that strikes me in this
we're creating less fear for people.
I'm done with your fly fishing story.
I was done to start.
No, but one of the things that strikes me in this conversation that comes up a lot when I talk with safety people about this topic
and other psychologists
and other non-psychologists, it's practicing non-licensed psychologists. It is you know, but we haven't talked a lot about evidence, you know, and I you know, because a lot of people are like, oh, we gotta get evidence, and that's the solution to this problem. But I think I think evidence is critical. I think we need a lot more of it in safety. But I think people who think the solution to their organization's problem is just getting more evidence are missing a large part of the solution.
Amen.
Well, okay, so we've got all these safety culture surveys. That doesn't do anything. It's just measurement. But what I thought was interesting about the Australia conference was there were lots of people with slides that show the plateau, right? The safety plateau. What's starting to happen and papers are starting to come out now, is they're showing the breaking of the safety plateau with these kind of structural work changes kind of projects. And I think that's going to be very helpful when you're in an organization, we want to innovate, what are we going to do, what approach are we going to take? And say, well, okay, well this approach seems to be working out for people, and we're actually seeing the breaking of the plateau to some extent, and they're going, oh, okay, well, so I think it's happening. I'm seeing it happening in healthcare. There's a paper coming out pretty quickly on this, but I'm seeing it happening in other places, and I think we could get all twisted up about getting over an overemphasis on evidence, but I suppose it is upon us to, within the profession, to actually provide some comfort to the people who have anxiety, who say, well, if we stop auditing and start changing the way that work is fundamentally done, how do we know that that's going to help us?
Yeah, which is a fantastic question. And I think here's what I think. I think the three of us, Diane, are not we just sort of ramble on, and then we end the podcast very often without something that someone can do. So I think, 7th episode is probably a time to give them a little tidbit, a little something to do. So can you
every 7? It's like the sandwich card thing. You do
I was going to say like cicadas.
And the 7th one, you get a free sandwich.
It's like cicadas. They just
is that a thing in other countries like Australia and UK? Like, do you have those little sandwich cards? Card? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Like, like a free haircut on the
like a coffee. I don't have that issue. A loyalty card. A loyalty card.
Sure. Yeah,
and they used to like punch them, and they don't really punch them anymore, I don't think. I don't know, maybe
but it's fine. If you've listened to all 7, now Diane's going to tell you.
You finally get something for your time.
Solve. But Diane, can you share with us a little bit the sort of structural change that you've brought up? So that structural change to work is a thing that we can do, that we can see, that hopefully, reduces some of that anxiety, but actually makes meaningful steps. So what are we looking at? What should someone do after listening to episode 7?
All right. So
other than turn this podcast off.
No. So let's just say that you're a HSE manager on a site, okay, or a HSE advisor on a site. So there are things that are giving you loss of sleep, or the site manager loss of sleep. What you do, and I've seen this happen loads of times, go to the site manager and say, this thing that's giving us this particular safety critical task that's giving us loss of sleep, let's go and have a look at that. Let's go and see how that's really working out for people. What's making the work difficult, what kind of issues have happened in the past, what would happen if somebody was new to do this task, and how are we going to redesign this task? Because we know that if this task goes wrong, we're going to have a really bad day. And just do the one, okay? Don't go and like all these things about people starting learning teams and doing 3 a month. I mean, that just it sends shivers down my spine in a terrible way, because I'm just thinking you're going to overload the organization. Just go for one and make a change to the one. And it may be that you might need to get budget in next year's plan to make the change. It may be that the changes are quite simple, but the point is just do the one, and it does make a huge change because everyone gossips about it afterwards, by the way. It makes a huge change to how people feel a bit more in control of the reality of risk on their site.
I love it.